Hello, hello, hello. I should say hello. Hola, hola, bienvenidos y bienvenidas a mi canal YouTube. Cristian Landaeta por acá con un gran invitado, un gran señor de la música del rock electrónico que hemos escuchado mucho, por mucho tiempo. Bienvenido, Harald Grosskopf. Grosskopf, I'm sorry, I was practicing all day yesterday. Hello.
Actually, it's Grosskopf.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but those sounds from German are difficult sometimes for us.
You know what it means?
Not really.
Gran cabeza.
Ah, it's just a coincidence, you say.
Yeah.
Well, I remember you as the silver-faced man from that very beautiful album, Synthesis. That to be honest, again, I had never heard of Harald Grosskopf in the 70s when I began. I felt attracted to progressive rock, and then I discovered the Sky label, which was very interesting in those days. So, well, I have several questions for you, Harald. I hope you don't mind my 250 questions. No, it's a joke. But I'd like to invite you to, well, first of all, I have to say that I got the chance to work on radio stations here in Chile back in the mid-80s. Those were special and difficult times here. And I got a phone call to go to Radio Concierto, which was back then the leading radio station in Pop FM. And I took some records under my arm. And then I was first a simple radio controller, as they call them here, DJ, and then I became a producer. And I started playing this European rock, electronic music from Europe. We were only used to Tomita, Synergy maybe, but not to, the likes of Ashra, Tempel, and any of those bands. So that's how the story goes. Then back in 1989, I was given the chance to be the music director of Futuro FM, like Future FM. And then between July 1989 until September 1996, I had the very lucky chance to play almost all day, whatever I wanted. And of course, I took the time to promote and show the people many records and many bands that had never been promoted here in Chile. And of course, one of those records was SYNTHESIST and all the bands that we have up there, like the Cosmic Jokers, Ashra, Tempel, and all that. So thanks for the time. And it's an honor really to have you here after so long, having been a fan and playing my music, airplaying your music here in Chile. Good to have you here.
Great. Yeah, great. What can I say? Fantastic. Because, maybe our music was never so really popular like Anglo-American rock or progressive music. And that's why it maybe took a while to go across the planet.
It did. Yeah, it did. Because I was wondering about that. You mainly work with small record companies that were not distributed by the big ones, like Phonogram had Polydor, had Brain, but not even Brain. In Chile, we had almost no progressive records released, except for some strange reason, Focus from Holland and some Genesis, but very late. So we were not exposed to any of this music. And we had to have somebody who was going to Europe, traveling, or, bringing records. It was really a real, we had to hunt music. We have to hunt down music in those days. So where do you have your most faithful fan base, Harald? Because you have like a new audience. You, Manuel, I spoke to Manuel last weekend, Manuel Goettsching, he was very kind. And I think that some new people, some younger generations have come close to your music.
The thing is that in the 80s, in Germany, we only had 2 magazines, and so I never really knew where we were, because we didn't really sell huge amounts of records. And the only way to find out how popular you are was looking into magazines. But printing magazines disappeared almost, or let's say they got much smaller. They have now more magazines, but very small. And But with the connection of the internet, you know, I found out how much value our music had internationally. And that is maybe 25 years ago when I started getting connected via internet. And since a few years, like since 10, 11 years, I started doing solo concerts also, because until then I never had an idea to perform solo, because I thought that was impossible, you know, because I had recorded everything myself, and to find musicians playing my music by hand or stuff, I just didn't think of it. And since my synthesis was re-released in New York by RV&G label, and a live performance in New York, I started getting kicked by the idea to perform more and more solo. And in the last years, you know, I played often in England, and I played in China, and with Ashra in Japan twice, and on several occasions. And yeah, that's.
How was the reaction in China? I didn't know that.
I mean, I played with Eberhard Kranemann, who was one of the founders of Kraftwerk.
Yes.
And he was living around the corner. I didn't know that. I didn't even know him, because he left Kraftwerk before they started recording. So very early days in the 60s, late 60s, I guess. And so we discovered each other on a little concert in my hometown here in an old castle. That was very nice. And I performed and he performed, and he made very strange noises, and so that I had to leave his concert after a minute, because it was so loud and just pure noise. And 3 weeks later, he phoned me and said that he really liked my performance, and whether we should do something together. And that's what we did. You know, we met, and then in the beginning, I was very skeptic because of this performance, you know.
Sorry, I lost you. I lost you for a few seconds. Yeah, I lost you for a few seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I met what did I mention last?
Now that you heard the noises, that you had to go out because it was too loud, and then he liked your performance.
And we met, and then he recorded the session, and it was, from my point of view, it was like 80% was rubbish, but 20% was really nice, you know. And so I took it into my computer and edited it, and added all kinds of sounds to it, bass and little drums here and there. And then I went back to him, and he really liked it. And so we made that record and got invited to perform in China in 2018. And it was really, really nice, you know, like a little festival, 500, 600 people. I don't know, it was packed, mostly young people. And in the end, you know, we signed autographs, and many young people said, "Oh, we traveled 200-300 kilometers to see your performance." That was a great experience, and it was live. It was live screened on a sort of YouTube, Chinese YouTube channel. It was not YouTube, it was some sort of same platform.
Yeah. And
500,000 people were watching it and following it. And so that was a great success, and I didn't expect that, because you know, we took some of our records, and it was 10 kilo too much, so we had to send it to Hong Kong to a friend, and picked it up before we went over to Shenzhen, which is very close to Hong Kong. And I thought, oh God, maybe we sell, I don't know, 3 or 4 records, and the rest we have to send back for a lot of money. But after 10 minutes, everything was sold out, you know? And so we made some extra money, and it was well paid. It was incredible, nice, organized, great people, you know, it was just fun. And we both felt very, very good and respected and supported. That was a great experience.
Now that I was thinking that obviously, and I've seen you in a photo with Jean-Michel Jarre, he was in China back in the early 80s and he was very well received. So there is some culture, some good appreciation of interesting music in China.
I guess so. China, I think, is opening very, very much to Western music after, you know, they changed their politics. After Mao, and they went through hunger catastrophes and they're building up the country again, and now they're getting to a very wealthy point. You know, a lot of people who are studying outside, you know, young people are studying outside China, which is all, I don't know, 500,000 people every year. They all go back to China because they like their country, you know. And Western politics is very anti-China, you know. And I have a different view. I mean, you can be critical about China. There's many points, but the Western Hemisphere is also be very critical, you know.
It is.
You know, and anyway, it was a great experience. You know, I'm a musician. I'm not a politician, and I had a very great time. And I would go there if it's possible at any time. You know.
I know that Eberhard Kranemann was part of Neu as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was the drummer. What's his name? Who passed away? You know. He was in the beginning. He was a drummer of Kraftwerk too. God, he was just living around the corner. The drummer of Neu. Hang on.
All right.
I check it was on the internet. Okay, Neu. Okay, Neu. Yeah, there we are. Wikipedia.
Klaus Dinger.
Klaus Dinger, exactly.
Yeah.
Klaus Dinger, and they founded Kraftwerk together with Florian Schneider-Esleben.
All right. Now, so in a few words, how do you see the German scene today and back then? Well, it's a big question, but the pros and cons. You said that we were talking about the small labels. It was not that evident or easy to promote your music, but now you have the internet, you have technology, the platforms. Everyone can access the music these days. But there must be some things that maybe you like the way they were done in the past. I don't know.
Well, the thing in the past, you know, there were record companies, and then they paid the production costs and maybe advance money. And so you could hire a studio on your own cost, or the record company paid it. And so I was used to work in big studios. And after I left Wallenstein and living in Berlin, I personally couldn't afford to hire a studio because that was very expensive, you know, like $500 per day, you know. And if you improvise music, you go there with a very small concept, and you need time to prepare things, you know, and get the right feeling. And so when I did, or when somebody said, "Oh, well, why don't you make solo records?" Udo Hanten, you know, the guy who was on my synthesis record, I didn't know how to realize studio costs. And he said, "Well, you have an 8-track recorder," and so the home recording started to get popular, you know, and independence. It was very primitive the way I recorded synthesis, very primitive. You can read it on that new issue, you know. And but what I want to say is it was very complicated, and in the end, it took a few years, you know, when computers were invented in the music production, you know, software and the ability to record either MIDI signals or analog signals. And I really like this independence. And now I have my own studio in my yard, and that's a great freedom to. And it took almost 20 years to be able to record completely independent. On the other hand, the whole record market worldwide collapsed because of illegal copying and spreading music for nothing. This is very hard for a lot of musicians. On the other hand, that's how we are all confronted, and we have to deal with it.
Yeah,
it's not easy to make money with music, especially with non-commercial music, with avant-garde music,
And I heard that sometimes it's not easy to keep control of it either, because I read some stories about some labels you dealt with in the past. I'm talking about, of course, the OR. Is that the pronunciation? OR? Cosmic Couriers, and Pills. Yeah.
Pills, yeah.
So I think
it's
oreja. In Spanish, oreja.
Orejas, exactly. Yeah.
Ah, you speak some Spanish, huh? You do?
No, not really. I was been in Spain 1 week ago on the Canary Islands, near the Cumbre Vieja volcano, and I could see it. It was very impressive. Yeah. Anyway,
we talked about that.
But I can order food, and beverages, but that's it,
Now, talking about synthesis, Harald, I just last night I was sharing some videos on my Facebook community. I have a Facebook community that is called The Immense Minority, La Inmensa Minoría, which is the slogan of the radio. I was the director for Futuro FM, and I was listening again, and I can't stop listening to it. Synthesis, the title track, there's such simplicity and beauty. I was writing there. And there's no showing off, I admire some other keyboardists, but they like to do this, many crazy things that are not necessary. And then your music is so simple and it really touches you. It touches me deeply. And I was going to ask you, how long did it take to complete that album? You said it was made in a very primitive way, but nevertheless, you never realized that. As a listener, you don't realize how complex it might have been. But then it might be a foolish question, where did you get the inspiration to write that simple but very, incredible track? Because it makes you travel to different places. And still today, it hasn't changed.
Because I never was musically educated. So I still can't read notes, And when I met Klaus Schulze, and he's also uneducated, and I had experience with people that are musically, they studied music and so on. But my experience was that the naivety of not knowing so much about music and being free to express your feelings was much more intense than performing with musicians that studied music. And I was a drummer and, self-taught, and I had to play everything by heart, with Wallenstein and later with Ashra, and we could improvise. And I never had the idea to make a solo album until Udo Hanten, who was involved, as I said, asked me, hey, why don't you make solo records? I said, well, who wants to listen to drumming, live drum solos an hour, I said, no, you worked with Ashra, you worked with Klaus Schulze, synthesizer, I said, I don't have any idea about synthesizer. I was just sitting aside, when these guys, when these dudes turned knobs, I probably in studios, I moved a fader, a volume fader. That was it. I have no idea, And I said, oh, I can help you. You come to my place and you bring your 8-track recorder. That's the only thing I had, I have a couple of synthes, and you can stay in my flat. And I had the expectation that he was helping me, but we were setting up, and then he said, okay, I'm leaving, you can stay here. I stay with my girlfriend. I visit you once or twice a day, and then we go having some dinner and stuff. And so I had to learn everything from scratch by doing it, when I recorded Synthesis. And as far as I was no keyboarder, I just drummed on the Minimoog, on the synthesizer, and and I was very insecure when I recorded things, you know, whether the feeling I had during the process, whether people can feel that same thing, you know. And so it took a while to get the you know, the self-consciousness, you know, about me performing on keyboards, you know.
I wanted to say that there's something about, maybe it's too big, I mean, it's a big statement. There's something about German rock, German music, and I think particularly I feel it in Popol Vuh that I really love. When I began watching the Herzog's movies, I went to a festival at the Goethe Institute, etc. And then there's some light in the music, some optimism about that music. And I think that Synthesis, the title track, has that light, that lightness and beautiful. And I don't know, it's so simple. That's what I was saying about simplicity and no flashing lights and all that. So I admire that.
Yeah, I mean, I was very naive when I did it, you know, and this naivety, you know, probably, and my freshness, you know, and my how do you say that? My
spontaneity.
Yes, exactly. That was probably the power that resulted in Synthesis, you know.
Okay. Now I read, and I'd like to get a hold of one copy. The Bureau B, is that the Bureau B?
Yeah, it's a label. Yeah.
They reissued the album, and I was surprised to see that you did also Synthesis Reloaded and Synthesis 2010, and you even got involved with Michael Stearns or Michael Stearns that I knew from before. I never knew that you had worked with him. How did you get involved with Michael?
I did not work with him. We met on a festival where Ashra performed in 1997 after our Japan tour. We had a nice concert in the Netherlands, and that's where I met Michael. And we became friends, and I once visited him in Santa Fe. And since then, we have contact from time to time. 2 years ago, I met him in Belgium, and a few days later in Berlin. He's a very, very nice guy, and he's doing very interesting music, very original, and he's a great personality. I really like what he's doing. It's original. I really like music that has origin, you know, that is I don't know, that is not on the planet twice.
Okay. Now he remixed. There are some people that are watching this conversation, Harald. And some people here don't know that he remixed one of your tracks for the Synthesis 2010, or was it the Reloaded version of it?
I don't know. I think that was a Reloaded version. Exactly. Okay. Yeah. And
yes,
that was the try to reproduce, you know, the feeling of Synthesis, you know, because. What was very, because I wanted to perform Synthesis live, and I was an idiot because my expectation after I released Synthesis was very high. You know, I thought 100,000 records, you know, which was the expectation of those times, you know, and in the end I just sold 10,000. And I was very, very disappointed, you know, and I thought, my Synthesis was rubbish. And I threw it in the corner, and I didn't listen for more than 10 years to Synthesis, you know, until I was connected to the internet and got all these reflections, you know, and that was very good for me to hear that people liked Synthesis. And then I listened to it again, and so my idea was to perform it live. And the thing is, that's why I said I was an idiot. You know, I didn't keep the original multi-track tapes. When Panne Pausen Studio stopped existing, you know, Eberhard Kranemann asked me, "Hey, I have a tape here, a 16-track tape. Do you want to have it?" I said, "Okay." I pick it up. And I never did, you know.
Wow.
And so he erased it and sold the whole studio. And so you really call me an idiot, you know. So I had to reproduce synthesis with computers and stuff. And I found out that it's impossible because in those times you didn't have presets, you know, and to get exactly to the sound of the original is almost impossible, you know.
So what you got that time, was unique. It's impossible to repeat it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I never really tried it again. And what I tried is to get, you know, very near, and especially to reproduce a feeling, a sort of feeling on stage I had when I did synthesis, you know.
So Bureau B, the version of Bureau B is like a re-recording then, it's not the original one.
Yeah, new stuff too, but some pieces are very, very close. And I was working with somebody who is, you know, very well-trained musician, and he liked that, you know, and so he had incredible equipment, and so he got quite close to the sound, you know. Yeah.
Okay. Now, but you said that you were disappointed with sales of synthesis, but then it came one more album that maybe some people here will remember. Ocean Heart. What about Ocean Heart? How much love do you feel for it?
Okay, Ocean Heart was, again, you know, I had a very little studio and you know, and a band in Berlin, and so I started recording there with the equipment I had, and then I met Christoph Franke from Tangerine Dream. In Berlin, he had a studio, and so I went there and finished the album there. And yeah, I never wanted to repeat synthesis, you know. I don't like to repeat myself over and over, which is very hard to do because you have a personality and then you have especially love for things. So it's involved that you probably repeat yourself. But I try to not to do that with Ocean Heart, you know. And I hope it is different.
Is it going to be reissued one day?
It is already.
Right.
You know, they have the right to do that. Bureau B, they do it constantly, you know. Well, as I said, you know, the big markets are not existing anymore. So Bureau B is a good label, but it's small, and I don't think that they can sell big amounts. But I'm happy that they sell and they find people during the time and young generation that buy this stuff, you know.
Now, some people here don't know Günther Forber was the man behind the Sky label. Günther Forber, the owner of the there's somebody who came from Metronome and the Brain Records, the Brain label. And
yeah, hang on, Günther.
Yeah,
no,
yeah. But no, my question,
yeah.
My question, Harald, is the Sky label became meaningful and important to many of us, like the electronic music fans. Same goes for Innovative Communication, the label that Klaus Schulze originally managed. One question is, I thought maybe you could have released synthesis on Innovative Communication, but it came out on Sky. I think for your relationship with Klaus.
Well, you know, Klaus, our relationship was quite short. You know, I met him in days where nobody knew him, you know, when we all were together on Ohr and Pilz label. And in the beginning, I was not a fan of his music, like his first record, Irrlicht. I found that very intellectual and abstract. And then one day I was living few hundred kilometers away from him. He moved away from Berlin, and I was living in the very west of Germany. And I was laying in bed, and there was this music radio program, and suddenly I heard interesting music, you know, sequences and melodies, and a very long piece. And And the announcer said, you know, oh, that was Klaus Schulze. And I was very surprised, you know, to hear rhythms and melodies and stuff. And I was really thrilled. And I immediately wrote him a postcard because I didn't have a phone in these days, you know.
What record were you listening to? What record?
I think it was Black Dance.
Ah, okay, Black Dance. Okay.
Yeah, Black Dance, and I wrote him, oh man, really great music, and he invited me. Yeah, come on, we know each other. So I visited him, and we went into his basement, and there was the big Moog, and he switched it on, and I was so thrilled about sequencing that I was looking around, and I need to accompany it with drumming. And so what I did, I was taking a casket, a plastic casket, put it in between my knees and started drumming on it. And he really liked that, you know. And he said, let's do my next record together. And that was Moondawn, you know.
Yeah, fantastic one. That's one of my favorites, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember then, you know, it was months later, he said, okay, come to, he wrote me a telegram, you know. And so the postman came here, is a telegram, and come to, in 3 days, come to Frankfurt. He gave me the address. So I went there and I was completely disappointed. Very small studio, and I was used to Dieter Dirks studios, and the famous studio near Cologne where we recorded all the stuff, you know. And I thought, oh God, Klaus Schulze, what is he doing? Why he's using such a small studio, you know? And then I found out everything was home built. Every electronic aspect, the mixer, the speaker cabinets, everything was made by his companion, Wolfgang Paulsen, you know.
Okay.
And in the end, I found out incredible good technique, you know. It was such a, that's why Schulze went there, you know, because it was just a great atmosphere, small, but very, very good technique. And because the guy was an electronic engineer and he know what he was doing. So that's then I, after a day, I understood why Klaus went there. And later we recorded Ashra albums there, and that was very, very nice. Yeah.
Did you have total freedom for your contributions, or was it more schematic to work Klaus? I mean,
no, it was I expected more structures, you know, because I was just finishing with Wallenstein, and Wallenstein was very, very strict and very schematic, and we rehearsed a lot, and Schulze just said, hey, you know what you're doing, you know. And so we improvised, and I had to get used to that too, but I really liked it after a short time, you know.
Yeah. And
we had a great time.
Okay. Did you go on tours? Did you frequently go on tours?
Unfortunately not. We had only 2 gigs together in the entire time. One was at the Meta Music Festival in Berlin at the National Gallery, famous building, and David Bowie was among the audience because he was living in Berlin at the time, and he was connected to Tangerine Dream, and he was looking for new inspiration in electronic music, and in the Berlin atmosphere in those times, you know, the tension of East and West and the wall and all that, you know, that was very special to live there. I lived there 11 years, and that was great times, you know.
Did you ever meet, or I don't think you ever recorded, but maybe you met other people on the Sky label, Harald, Adelbert from Deyen, Serge Blenner, Wolfgang Reichmann. Are you familiar with that?
No. I know Michael Rother. Yeah, I met him a few times in life. Sometimes we accidentally we meet, and but I was, you know, after I finished Wallenstein, I received a letter from Florian Fricke, you know.
Yes.
And he said, I heard you quit Wallenstein, and I need a drummer because my drummer who's also Daniel Fichelscher, you know, who is also a guitarist. He can't play both instruments, and that's why he invited me to come to Munich. And because I really liked his music, so I went to Munich, and the next day we started, you know, trying out. But you know, I was a rock drummer, you know, really heavy rock drummer, and Florian played a grand piano without amplification, and Daniel had a small amp playing guitar very softly, and I just couldn't cope that. I was, you know, as a drummer needs to have a certain amount of physical tension, and I couldn't do it. So I left the next day, and I was really disappointed. And a few days later, I went to visit Klaus, and the story I was just talking about happened.
What's that? Sorry, I missed that part. I said I really am a big fan of Popol Vuh, and I would have liked to speak to Florian Fricke. So I'm amazed to find out that you once tried to I mean, you were invited to work with him, but I understand. Yeah. Now.
Yeah, he was a nice guy, and was so. Yeah, and it was so sad that he passed away much too early in life.
Yes.
But he created some great music, and his involvement with Werner Herzog is just brilliant, you know.
Yes. Now, how do you account, Harald, for your new audience? I would say that you, Manuel, Goettsching, and others seem to have been virtually reborn. Maybe it has to do with the rebirth of vinyl, or some samplers used by some bands. That I don't know. How do you account for that? Like, Synthesis is released for the first time almost, so there's a whole new bunch of people, you know, enjoying it. Same with Ashra, Tempel, and Ashra.
Yeah, I mean, the rebirth of vinyl is not so big as it maybe looks like.
Okay.
You know, it's still, you know, the amounts you can sell is much less than we were able to do in the end of 70s, you know, and beginning 80s, and that's when the label started dying, and when their business with hardware disappeared, you know. But anyway, you know, there's always a connect. I think life is a nice way to sell some records, you know, and via my Facebook account or my Bandcamp account, I can sell a little bit. I'm not dependent. I'm a pensioner already, so I'm not dependent on making money with music.
Okay.
And which is a great thing too. You know, you know, in the 80s, sometimes I thought, I never want to be in the situation where I have to make music, have to make money with music, you know. I rather do something else, which I did sometimes, jobs, you know, and but then wasting my time with commercial music, you know, doing commercial music I don't like and stuff, you know.
Have you ever, I suppose that maybe you tried teaching drums?
No, I never.
Like...
you know, I'm a very bad teacher, you know. What I did seminars with people, and we just improvised drumming, and people really liked it. You know, for me it was, I had to reduce myself on very simple beats, otherwise, you know, sometimes it was a completely cacophony, but sometimes it was very nice, and people really liked it. You know, drumming for 1 or 2 hours, you know, and for a whole week. That was great fun too.
Now, you also work with somebody I admire a lot too, and I had the chance to airplay his records on Futuro FM. He's unluckily not with us any longer, Mr. Klaus Hoffmann-Hoock. I saw that you were on his Palace of the Winds album with Ron Boots, no less. I like Ron Boots a lot. Yeah. So how did you meet him in some festival? How did the invitation come up to record?
Yeah, accidentally. I think we met in Holland the first time when I remember, 30 years ago, and mostly on those festivals we met, and he invited me to work on this album. Well, I don't know when that was. This long time ago, I guess.
Yeah.
And I see it was on IC. It was released on IC.
Yeah, it was. I think it's 1995, The Palace of the Winds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
he was a great fan of India. He traveled India. I did that too. Like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I was several times in India, and but he's the bigger Indian freak.
Yeah.
Or he was, unfortunately.
I was about to interview him back in the mid-90s when I was at the radio station, and he was very kind. He sent me a postcard from Bali, and he said, after I get back from vacation, we can do the interview, no problem. And then I left the station, so it never happened. So unluckily, well, he's playing from heaven, they say. Yeah.
A lot of people already gone.
Yes. Now you've had some interesting collaborations. Yes. Harald, you've made some interesting collaborations with people like Eric Volo, Thorsten Quershing. Is that the right way to say it? Paul Frick. Remember that? Yeah.
Oh, yes. We supposed to do some gigs together in 2020, last year, and then the Corona pandemic came and crossed our plans. I really like them. They're both studied musicians, very well-trained musicians, but they are not intellectual guys, They are very emotional. And that's why they probably accept me as somebody who has no idea about music, And they liked Paul, discovered my music. I discovered him on accidentally, Paul, with his band Brandbrauer Frick.
Yes.
And I said, wow, that's nice music. Who does it? And then I researched, and I found out he has a Facebook account. And so I connected to him and said, hey, Paul, great music. I really liked, Harald. And he knew me. And then we came together and made some sessions in the beginning of 2020 in order to have few performances. And that was great fun too. Also Thorsten is a great musician. I don't know anybody who is has so incredible technical skills, and who is so relaxed with all these complicated stuff. He's surrounded by walls of keyboards, and in his studio, in his basement, studios, surrounded walls of synthesizers and keyboards, and he controls it with a lightness I never experienced before.
Well, personally, I think that he's giving new life to Tangerine Dream. To be honest, he's amazing. He's really amazing, and so is Ulrich Schnauz. He's fantastic as well. You possibly know Ulrich Schnauz.
Yeah, I think he left the band. I really like his music. And I must tell the truth. Thorsten is worked with Tangerine Dream 15 years already, and I didn't really like this sort of period, until when Edgar Froese passed away. To that point, I think that was strange music. I just couldn't cope with it, and I told that Thorsten, and I think he agreed. And then when I heard they perform Tangerine Dream and the Japanese musician and Ulrich Schnauz will perform near my hometown, I said to myself, I will check it out, And I really liked it because it reminded me to Tangerine Dream, that feeling. And I think without Edgar Froese and the other musicians, they are much better than ever,
Yes. Now, if we go back a little further in time, Harald, one of the records that you see back there is the box, the Walter Wegmuller's Tarot box, which is really quite amazing. You were involved with in this project, and you were also involved in the Cosmic Jokers. What are your memories of these days, in simple words?
Who can't remember wasn't there. It was great fun. It was a lot of drugs involved. I dropped LSD, and that was a great experience. And thank God I did not have any horror trips then, like in other occasions. But in those times, it was an incredible experience to make me to drum, on LSD, which I hadn't before. That was some kind of breakthrough, because I remember until that point, I was a great fan of big drummers like Dream drummer, Ginger Baker, you name it, all kinds of big guys. And I was trying to copy them. And when I performed with other musicians, I always, try to put or to almost press this style on the actual music. And when I was on LSD, I suddenly had this voice in me that says, "Hey, Harald, why don't you listen to what they're doing?" And then from that moment, I started to listen and started to create my own feeling without taking care as a fan of other big drummers, And that was a big breakthrough in my career, I would say,
Sure it was. Now, yes.
I don't want to promote LSD. It's a very dangerous drug. We were really lucky. Some guys we lost, like the Wallenstein vocalist Jerry Berkers. He died 20 years ago, and he went from LSD to coke to heroin, and he died in a park in the Netherlands, because he was from there. And or Hartmut Enke from Ashra also, he had a horror trip, and he never really came back. So I stopped doing that a long time ago, and but it was an experience I can't deny. I did it, and it was okay.
Okay. Now, you just mentioned Ginger Baker. What other musicians have you been inspired by, or drummers or synthesizer players? Who would you say, maybe you're not a fan of anybody, but maybe you like or have heard? I see you have some CDs there in your shelves at the back. So you're a good reader. You are a good reader. You have lots of books, from what I see.
A lot of books, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think in my early days, in the Wallenstein times, of course, we liked Pink Floyd, and before that, Jimi Hendrix. I saw his last performance on a German festival. Jimi Hendrix, that was a great experience. And Cream and the Who, and the rock cream of those time, I admired. And but later, after let's say the Schulze era, I started getting away from rock music, and not really listening too much on other music. Since then, I never really bought much records anyway. Music is coming to me. Young people show, "Hey, listen to that. I listen to that." In the last years, I really liked Underworld, a British band. I don't know whether you know them.
Yes.
Underworld, pretty famous. They perform worldwide. I saw them twice live, and I was really impressed. And what I heard is that they are inspired by German crowd electronic music.
Yeah, well, there are lots of new bands, young guys that say that they've been inspired by krautrock. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think there's so much music to discover too. I just don't have the time to do that. I really like I'm a family man. I have kids, and I have enough to do to produce my music. So I don't go very much out to listen to other concerts. From time to time, accidentally, like Brandbrauer Frick, I saw live, and I was great. It was techno and but well organized and really, really touchy music. They're really good.
Now, do you think, before we skip or forget the subject, would you say that krautrock was just a special funny name, or was it a concrete style or movement? Because everyone seems to have a different opinion, and they say that the term came from the press, the British press, mocking German rock in some way. What's your view on that?
Exactly. And I think krautrock is not a style of music. It is probably a state of mind. When we were, as you can imagine, my generation was confronted with parents that grew up in the Nazi times, that were involved in the Hitler Wehrmacht, and they fought. And my father fought, and my uncles fought in Russia and stuff. And after Germany was released, I must say, we didn't lose a war, we were freed, and a lot of people, it took like 20 years after the war, even 25 years, to get rid of this, the administration, the police, teachers, they all were involved in those times. And we started rebelling. We started rebelling against this incredible fascism and that was still existing and surrounding us. And that was, I think, part of our, let's say, our vision to rebel and to become free and looking for other opportunities in life than that was our parents offered us, I mean, you grew up in Chile and you had problems too there too. I know, much longer than we did,
Yeah. Now, of course, you were familiar maybe with some people from the innovative communication label. I would like to ask you, Harald, if you were ever familiar or know something about this mysterious character that I think is not anymore with us, Clara Monstein, who made an amazing album.
Walter, I mean, keep on going.
No, I think it was a guy named Walter something, Strauss.
Walter Bachauer?
Yeah, but it was a mystery name because we never knew anything about who was behind the music. But anyway, he made these two fantastic albums, and yeah, I wanted to ask if you were ever in contact or play with him.
Oh yes, I mean he was, I was talking about the Meta Music Festival, with the festival where I performed with Klaus, and Bowie was in the performance. Him, Walter Bachauer, he was a radio guy and a musician in Berlin. He was Austrian. He came from Vienna, and he and Michael Hönig, Michael Hönig, they started this festival, and I think the festival was done 2 or 3 times, and then they started with a coffee shop, not a coffee shop, a cafe, and they called it Einstein Cafe. And now Einstein cafes are in Berlin, I don't know, 5 or 6 already, and but Walter, he committed suicide, and everybody was very shocked. He was a very talented musician. And once I met him in his, in that Einstein Cafe, they had a flat above, and I met Terry Riley there, and Terry Riley was, he was fascinated by Berlin and the wall, and he said, oh, he would like to see East Berlin. And I said, Terry, tomorrow we visit East Berlin. And that's what we did. And we visited friends in East Berlin, and they were shocked, you know, that I ring the doorbell, and suddenly they saw me and Terry Riley, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Very nice, humble person. Was great. Was a great encounter. Yeah.
Now you've also been involved, and you have demonstrated your fears, your worries about the environmental issues. I was watching last night some videos about the 528 US nuclear bomb tests that took place long ago, and you've made some music about that, the nuclear energy and all the accidents that it's already produced.
I cooperated with Axel Heilhecker. He is a famous guitarist in Germany, and he's a very good, well-trained rock musician. But on the other hand, he is very open to experiment.
Mm-hmm. I lost you momentarily. All right, we're going to have a break now. End of part 1.